Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to stitch a peyote stitch bracelet. This is the easiest stitch to learn and it should be your first. And again, this is my personal opinion. I would like to teach you the same way I learned how to do beadwork. So let me start with the type of beads that I would recommend to do this bracelet, okay? For this bracelet, we're going to use cylinder beads. Cylinder beads are called or have different names depending on who makes them or who is the manufacturer. This bead right here is made by Toho. This bead right here is made by Miyuki. So those are the two major brands. They're both Japanese. And just to let you know, these beads are made of glass and not plastic. Like sometimes a student asks me if these beads are plastic, but no, they're glass. Now, the beads come in many different finishes, many different colors. You know, we have AB finish like this, that is like, it depends on the sun and how the sun hits, you're going to see different colors. We have matte colors, we have metallics, and you name it. There's a lot of different ones. But one of the things that you need to know that are very important is the size. There are many sizes available for these beads. The size that we use the most in this type of beadwork that I'm going to teach you is size 11. This is size 11. This one right here is a size 10. So, what is the difference and why do they call them size 10 or size 11? Size 11 means that if I put 11 of those beads in a row or in a line like this, the measurement of this would be 1 inch. This is a size 10. If I put 10 beads in a row, then the measurement of that line or the length of that line will also be 1 inch. Unfortunately, this is not very precise. It will depend on the manufacturer and the type of bead. Let me explain that again. So, no, they're quite regular on size, but not perfect. So you're gonna see, for example, that there are some size when one is a little bit smaller than the other. I don't know if you can see it here, but you can see this little one smaller than that one. The difference is not huge, but there is a difference. Okay, Miyuki is a little bit better with that. They are a little bit more uniform. But if you want a very well calibrated exact bead, you might need to use ICOs, which are these ones right here. These beads are calibrated and they are exactly identical, okay? But of course, because they are calibrated, they are going to be more expensive. So regarding to price depends on many things. The finish, the manufacturer, and how many grams do you need or buy. So that's pretty much what you need to consider when you buy these beads. Now, the beads that are manufactured by Toho, they are called Toho Treasures. But the beads that are manufactured by Miyuki, those are called delicas. And in the bead world, actually most teachers, most beadwork teachers will use the word delica. We have it, I don't know why, but it's kind of like a standard. When everybody says delica in beadwork, we know we're talking about cylinder beads. Okay, so where can you find this bead? I actually yesterday took a little and I drove to Michael's, and now Michael's is carrying Toho and Miyuki beads. So maybe you can just, if this might be your first project, just go ahead and go to the store. But wait until I tell you what other materials to get. Okay? All right, this is all about the beads. The materials you need for this project are, you're going to need a pair of scissors. Please do not buy a very expensive pair of scissors. Just go ahead and buy one of the school graded pair of scissors. The thread that we're going to use actually damages scissors quite easily. Okay, so just a plain cheap pair of scissors will do. Here I have an 8mm rondelle bead. This is the shape. It's a crystal. It does have a hole right there. Okay. If you cannot find an 8mm crystal that matches with the beads that you're going to use, you can use any 8mm round bead and that will be fine. I'm also going to use size 10 delicas. I think if this is the first time you're working with peyote stitch, try to get a size 10. But if you cannot find a size 10, then use size 11. It should be okay. Then you're going to need beading needles. This is my favorite beading needle, tulip. As a matter of fact, that's the only needle I buy now. Again, this is my personal preference. However, they are not that cheap. Four pieces, okay, will cost you about $5. So the good thing about these needles is that they last a long time. I also recommend, if you want looking for a cheaper brand but that is good, the pony needles are good. So you might want to get maybe a little package of size 12 and a package of size 10. Then we're going to use Fireline. Fireline is pretty much like a fishing line thread. As you can see, it's very strong. And I want you to get the 6 pound. The 6 pound smoke. Okay, that is the thread that we're going to use for this project. Okay, so now you need to go ahead and find these materials, and then on my next video we are going to start. All right, so before we start, I would like to show you how this bracelet will look when it's done. Okay, it will be a strip of peyote stitch, then the closure, this loop will wrap around this bead and that will make it close. Okay, so let's start explaining the process of how you start your band, your peyote stitch. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the thread from here, and I would like to have probably about a yard or 1.5 yards in length. Please don't try necessarily to think that the best thing to do is to use the most thread. You need to be comfortable with the amount of thread you're going to use. So right here, I'm going to cut, and I'm going to place the beads that I'm going to use on my mat. And then I'm gonna grab my thread. I also pinch the end of the thread so it's flattened a little bit, and it can go through the hole of the needle much easily, or the eye of the needle. Then you're gonna fold it, but I want you to leave at the end, okay, just when it's not double. Let me just show you really quick. You see double, double, double. But when I get here, I have about 6 to 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches that I need to leave as a tail. So when I start, I actually wrap like maybe 3 rounds of thread around my finger. And the bracelet that we're going to make is 10 beads, 10 beads wide. So we're gonna start with 10 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 beads in my needle. Look what I do. I put my thumb on top of it. I want them to be together. And then I press these 2 fingers right here so my beads don't go everywhere on my thread. Okay? So embrace yourself with a table. And then you're gonna grab a bead, 1 bead. You're gonna skip the first one, and you're gonna go through the second bead. Okay? Then you're going to pull and make sure that you have this shape at the end that looks like a T. Okay? Grab your next bead. I will always put my thumb on top of the work that I have done because I don't want it to get distorted. So I'm going to skip a bead. I'm going to go through my next one. If I'm skipping a bead every single time, that means that I'm only going to be allowed to add 5 beads, right? Because there were 10 in total. So now I'm going to grab a bead. I just did, put it in my needle. And when you go through the bead, it's much easier to go in an angle than go straight. Because if you go straight, you might go through more beads that you have to. Or that you need to. You only need 1. And then I pull and I see that my pattern, my peyote stitch is forming. So let me continue. I put my thumb on top of it, grab a bead, skip 1, and again you can always see where your thread is coming out. My thread is coming out of this bead. I skip that one and go through the next one or the adjacent one to that one. Okay, pull. If it doesn't look good, like in this case, go ahead and with your fingers help it a little bit. Always the beginning of any stitch, that's the hardest part. But once you have some work done, you know, like maybe an inch or so, you're gonna see that it's much easy to grab. Okay, to grab your work. So now I need to start doing the next row. As you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high beads and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 low beads. Okay, so in reality, from now on, you always are going to be coming out of a low bead. So now I have to work towards me. So I'm gonna grab a bead, and you always skip the lows. You're gonna go through high beads. Here's 1, pull. Here's my next bead. I see the low right there. Remember, you need to skip it. You need to go through the next high bead. And as you can see, my peyote stitch is starting to form. Go ahead, grab a bead, and go through the next one. Okay. Next bead, skip the low one and go through the high bead. And then I'm gonna need one more to finish this row. So now we have, let me move this around, you have this, okay? And that is the peyote stitch. Now, let me teach you how to count the beads. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to go kind of like in diagonal like this. And you're gonna realize that you have 4 beads there. That means that you have done 4 rows. Some of you might be thinking, no, she only did 3 rows. But what happened is that each row is made out of 5 beads. And remember that I started with 10. So the first 10 beads, they actually will become 2 rows. So I hope that makes sense. Now, grab your work again and let's add another row. So get out of your bead. You can see that you're coming out of this one. You're gonna grab a bead and then you're gonna go 1, 2. If this still bothers you, do the same thing that I did before. Hold it with your fingers. And then here 3. You can see how I always put my thumb on top of my work when I want to pull the thread because I don't want my work, and I know I said this already, distorted. Okay, there you go. And then I'm gonna add this bead, which is the last one. And then you're supposed to now work towards you. Now, some students think that the best way would be to turn it this way. And you know, it might be, but what happened is sometimes they're coming out of this low and they want to go all the way to this side to go through this high. No, guys. You need to go always in the same direction. Pay attention to where the thread is coming out. It doesn't make sense to go through this bead because then what happened to this one, right? So what I usually do is I always like to work, I'm right-handed, I like to work from right to left. So watch me again. I'm gonna go and add my 5 beads. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But instead now of turning it over this way, doesn't make any sense. Okay, I'm going to, let me move that tail away. This is the thread I'm using right here. So I'm gonna turn it sideways like this. And now, again, this is the thread I'm working with. I can grab my work and now add the next row of 5 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say you're having issue with your tension. Let's say this bead right here, like, oh, it's loose. What can I do? You see that it's, it doesn't look right. The best thing to do, or if it's actually twisted, also sometimes this happen. You're like that. So what you need to do is untwist it with your finger, okay? And then pull it. So when you pull it, right? Can you see that now it's open, it's a loop, that it's not all tangled. So then I will pull carefully, pull tight, and now my bead is in place. Okay? So what I want you to do now is to continue working this peyote, and then you have to do a long strip. But I know that at one point you're gonna need to add thread. So on my next video, I'm gonna teach you how to add thread. Okay? So get to work.